We are with you on another live Johnny Torch live broadcast. This is broadcast number 259. We're going live today, as this is also a review of sorts. We're going to review the new Fantastic Four First Steps trailer, easy for me to say, that just came out today. This is the new MCU version of the Fantastic Four, long awaited, the first family of Marvel, finally being added to the MCU. And what did you think of the trailer? Let me know. And we are going to start off with my thoughts on the trailer. Now, I have to say, I'm kind of two minds about it. On the one hand, I like these costumes. This looks to me very old school, like original concept Fantastic Four. So they got me on that. I like that. I'm not too crazy about the white sleeves there on Johnny and Ben. I don't really know what that's all about. Of course, in Ben's case, I think at some point doesn't he have to wear the trunks? That's kind of that's kind of really what we want to see the thing in, just the trunks. But I think in the Tim Story films, he was basically wearing pants, which is just as good, I guess. I was brought up on sort of just him wearing trunks, and it kind of feels like that's the way he's supposed to look to me. But we'll get to that in a second. Um, so I kind of like the visual. I like the way the costumes look. It kind of feels like they're not trying to be too realistic, which is always the problem with all these uh, costuming. The Fantastic Four films have always tried to make them very dark costumes, very dark blue, the black boots and everything, which is honestly that's kind of the original look. You can't complain, but the white and blue I think always looked a little bit better. It pops a little bit more. So the trailer, and I've got some images here. We're going to look at the images, but I'm not going to try to do them in any semblance of order because that would be just too difficult. But yeah, as far as the costumes go, I'm going to say right off the bat, I think they look great. I'm happy with the way they look, and the trailer seemed to me to have a lot of beats from the Tim Story Fantastic Four films, where it's sort of like family first. The trailer starts with Reed saying they always have a family dinner and so on and so forth. And this is, of course, set in the 60s, and it's also set in an alternate universe, which is, I guess, how they're going to both make the Fantastic Four the first superhero entity while also eventually having them merge with the MCU proper, which is the 616, I guess, as it's called. And how they're going to do that, I'm not sure. We know that there's going to be some crossover multiverse shenanigans, probably with Secret Wars. I can only imagine that this will have something to do eventually with the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom, because we've already heard he's going to be the Doctor Doom in the two Avengers films, Secret Wars, and what's the other one? Doom something. And I have a feeling that's the reason why Doctor Doom is not the main villain in this film. If anything, maybe they'll give him a cameo at the end as a post-screen tag, post-film tag. But that's why he's probably not in this. And yeah, this looks very old school. And we have, like I said, Pedro Pascal. Again, he sticks out like a sore thumb. This is one of the problems I had with his casting, is that he's in everything, and what you want from an actor is you want them to disappear into the role, and I can't help but see Pedro Pascal. And I think that it would have gone a long way if you shaved the mustache, shaved the goatee, go with an old school Reed that just has the graying temples and doesn't have the day old beard or whatever that Reed has sometimes in the comics. But it just looks to me like Pedro Pascal. You know, he looked probably more like Reed in the Wonder Woman 84 movie, where he was actually clean shaven, and you could have probably had him look like this in this film, and he would have looked more like Reed. We've got Vanessa Kirby And she looks good. I like her as Sue. She's got that old school vibe look about her, which is nice. I don't know if she would have been my first choice, honestly, to be Sue. Here's a better look at her in the costume. That does look like her, though. I mean, that does look like Sue. I guess maybe sort of early 90s ish kind of Sue looked like that. Doesn't really look like the 60s Sue, to be honest with you, but I guess that's fine. That's not a problem. Going through the actors one by one. Let's take a look at Johnny. And Johnny, for some reason, to me, he didn't get enough screen time to really have me register an opinion on him. I mean, he kind of looks like he's doing the Chris Evans thing where he's kind of like a devil may care soul like Johnny Storm is in the comics, and he's kind of like a layabout. He's kind of a loafer. He's not really in the thick of things. This shot here, I don't understand what this is. He's trying to fly into space, apparently, loses power and starts plummeting. There's no oxygen. I don't know how he's not dead. Um, he's got, I guess, civilian attire on. I don't know how that didn't burn up. I guess maybe at this point they're gonna just say all of his clothes are made of unstable molecules. I mean, they ran with that in the comics for a long time. I can't complain. But yeah, he looks all right. I would say he looks the part. I was more afraid he wasn't going to look the part because even when Chris Evans was cast, I didn't think he looked the part when they showed the first, you know, promo image of him. He had sort of a short hair, kind of brownish. He didn't really look like Johnny Storm. And in this case, I would say I think he looks like Johnny Storm. He looks to me like he came from the comic. I just don't know. I have to see something from him. And this trailer did absolutely nothing with him or for him. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic about him. I don't really know honestly what they're going to do with him, but it looks look wise to me like a decent representation of Johnny Storm. Of course, this is the image of him on fire. We get to see him flame on, which he better say flame on in this film. Just like I want to hear it's clobbering time. There's no excuses. And it's tough to tell just from this image and from this angle. Um, I would like to see him look more um, on fire, so to speak. But this is, he's flying, and the wind is, of course, sort of tampering down that look. So we'll see. Okay, so sorry for the interruption there. I guess it couldn't be helped, and I might have to edit this later. But yeah, I like the look of the Human Torch on fire. I think he looks pretty good there. And again, this is sort of the first trailer. And to compare it to like Superman, which I know a lot of people are doing because you have the Snyder Bros that hate basically anything that comes up to challenge the Snyder version of Superman. They're already, they're talking down the James Gunn Superman. They're talking down uh, this film. They're sort of propping up this film in order to talk down the James Gunn Superman. It's all ridiculous, basically. And I just go by what I see. I mean, I want both of these films to be successful, and I kind of feel like neither trailer really got off on the right foot. I kind of feel like the Superman trailer, they already started with sort of a Superman who was already defeated, and that's not the way you start a first trailer. In this case, I don't think that they started on the wrong foot with showing sort of a ground view of the Fantastic Four before we get into all the Galactus stuff and so forth. So that's pretty good. But I kind of feel like they didn't really get us acclimated to all the characters. And I feel like that's kind of what went wrong here with Johnny. I think for the Fantastic Four, they kind of neglected him. So that's, I think, where they kind of went wrong with this one. All right. Next up, we'll do finally the ever loving blue eyed thing. And I honestly am not a fan of this look. Now, people are sort of two opinions about it. Some people I've seen love it, saying it's exactly like the comics. Some people I've seen hated it and think it doesn't look, you know, kind of organic enough. Personally, I don't like this. I think on the one hand, I think they do have a good model this time. Now, for instance, let's take like the Michael Chiklis thing, makeup or prosthetic, whatever it was. It didn't have that pronounced brow, and I always said that's kind of what you need. You got the brow right like the comics with this version. I'll get a better shot here in a second. You've got the nose looking just like the typical version of the thing. You've got the mouth looking reasonably accurate like the thing. But the problem for me is his eyes are so small and beady looking. It doesn't look like the thing enough to me. It doesn't look like the ever loving blue eyed thing when you can barely see his eyes. I think they made the brow too pronounced in this case because it takes away from his eyes. And every shot that I see him in, his eyes are shadowed over by the tremendous brow. And I think that's why we didn't get a great looking thing the previous films, even going back to the Roger Corman film, where they did try to give us some kind of a pronounced brow, but they had it sort of raised enough so that you could see his eyes. It's very difficult to pull this off in live action. I don't know if we're ever going to see a truly great live action thing with where you can see his, Aunt Petunia's favorite nephew, the ever loving blue eyed thing. I want to see his eyes, and I feel like they're so small and beady. And maybe that could have been fixed with CGI. Like, for instance, I think when they do the Hulk and they do the Hulk in CGI, I don't think they completely use Mark Ruffalo's eyes. So if you have his head getting bigger and he becomes this large behemoth, his eyes grow with his head. And I think in this case, I'm not remembering the name of the actor, but I think they're using his actual eyes, and they're not allowing for the natural progression of the size of his head to expand the eyes a little bit and make them look a little more normal. That to me is a big problem with the design, but the design itself is correct, I have to admit. I mean, I'm not complaining about the look of the thing just to complain about the look of the thing. I think it's mostly on point, but they just made too much of a pronouncement in the brow that his eyes are almost completely undefinable. You can't really see his eyes in these faraway shots. And that's one of his main characteristics, like I said, is the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. I think you have to be able to see those eyes. That's his trademark. And you don't see it. So kind of disappointed in that aspect. Um We get Herbie. Herbie's back. That's kind of a cute look. They're trying to make him look like the old analog tape type stuff, and I honestly don't know what they would do with Herbie, only than to make him a cute cameo thing. I mean, are they gonna actually make him a character? Probably not. But again, it's a pretty good representation of Herbie, the robot. Of course, as you know, Herbie was he was the replacement for the Human Torch in the cartoon. I think in the '70s it was before my time, and it was because they were afraid that kids would, you know, play with fire or something if they seen the Human Torch, and it was just some kind of lame excuse. I don't know. This is the mysterious character John Malkovich is playing. I don't know who he's supposed to be. I honestly don't know. Some have suggested the Mole Man, the Puppet Master. He looks like neither of those. Um, I'm not sure. He's possibly, could he be Sue and Johnny's father? I know they did some kind of storyline about that in the cartoons. But I don't know. It's your guess is as good as mine. Um, we don't get an image of the Silver Surfer in this. The Silver Surfer in this case is going to be played by uh, a woman. I don't really know. I don't know the name of the actress. I forget. We do get our glimpse at Galactus. Looks great, of course. We've seen a little glimpse of him before. Not sure, about the costuming. We haven't seen him, but for his head. But I'm hoping for it to be reasonably accurate to the Kirby design, the magnificent Kirby design, and I have reason to believe it will be. But I don't like the idea of the gender changed Silver Surfer, and I don't know if they're using a different one. I mean, he's had many heralds in the past. Galactus, there's Nova, there's I don't know, one or two others that were heralds after Silver Surfer. I don't know why you would put them ahead of Silver Surfer, particularly when Silver Surfer turns out to be such an important character in the Fantastic Four lore. I mean, how do you bring him in after the fact? I mean, to me, that's like having, you know, Jason Todd as your first Robin. You know what I mean? You kind of have to have Dick Grayson. How do you have Silver Surfer come in later? Perhaps you have Silver Surfer already being his herald and already leaving and taking off. And I don't know how you divorce Silver Surfer from this. And I don't think they should have had to. Now, I think with the second film, The Rise of the Silver Surfer, they did the Silver Surfer story and they did a pretty good job by it. But the problem is it was not the Lee Kirby version of that story. So, I mean, they really could have gone back to doing the Silver Surfer right, doing the Silver Surfer with Alicia Masters being his sort of confidant and this and that. They didn't have to start off with it like this. But I mean, I honestly think that Galactus should be a sequel villain, or more appropriately, a third movie villain. If you're going to have a Fantastic Four trilogy, I think you build up to Galactus in the third act, because this is supposed to be sort of a, an Avengers level threat. And you're already taking him in the first film. You're already taking care of him in the first film. Then, and again, this is going to be a Fantastic Four that doesn't have an Avengers. Now, I mean, they might have their version of certain characters in this universe, but again, it's in the '60s, so I don't know how you're going to tie that in. Uh, we have the Baxter Building, which I thought looks really neat. Um, in the comics originally, the Baxter Building didn't look too specific. It was just kind of a building. But this is a nice design. It's kind of Art Deco. You've got the four symbol. It's really nice the way they designed this. And like I said, I was not a big fan of the idea of them doing it in the '60s. I was not a big fan of the idea of making it a period piece. But this is supposed to sort of be a like I said, a multiverse version of the Fantastic Four. And I feel like what they're trying to do here is they're trying to do sort of like Batman. When you've seen Batman 89 and yeah, well, even Batman and Batman Returns, which is what Batman the Animated Series was largely based on. It was sort of the feeling of it's like a 1940s blended with the 1990s kind of aesthetic. Where you sort of have people dressed, in the 40s wearing trench coats and fedoras, and you have the dark noirish thing going on. This is the same thing, except they're trying to make it sort of a futuristic 60s, if the 60s was sort of like the Jetsons, if the 60s were in the modern day where we all expected in the 50s and in the 60s to have jetpacks and stuff like that. This is kind of, I guess, what they're going for with this. And I think I got one more image left. This is interesting. I don't really know what this is supposed to be. I guess this is the Fantastic Car. Actually, it looks really cool. I would like to, I would like to see this thing in action. It kind of looks like it's in reverse. Like it's going this way, but it kind of looks like these are the turbines to take it that way. I don't know. But I found that very cool, and I thought that was very interesting. So again, in the final analysis here, I am sort of cautiously optimistic. The one other thing we didn't talk about that I said was like the most important thing, and I have a feeling a lot of people have complained about this as well, is the Ben Grimm voice is just awful. It's awful. It has absolutely no inflection of it. Like the guy isn't even trying. Now he's kind of putting on a slight Brooklyn accent, and I'm not saying he has to sound, exactly like Jackie Gleason or something, but he's not really, because Ben Grimm has the most recognizable voice in comics. If you're reading a Fantastic Four comic, in any point of the run, you have that certain voice in your head, even though, I mean, even if you've never heard a cartoon or any of the movies, you know what he sounds like. This guy does not sound like Ben Grimm. And I really hope that they go back and modulate his voice a little bit, or at the very least, try to, maybe with some ADR, get him to put some character in that, because it doesn't sound like Ben Grimm at all to me. And I'm glad we got this out of the way early, because maybe now they can do something about it. I don't really think they're going to put him through no extensive ADR sessions, but I have a feeling that this is not going to go over well with a lot of people, because we all expect the thing to be kind of brusque, you know what I mean? And he's like, no, this gravy is pretty good. Let me tell you. Yeah, I need a little more garlic. You know what I mean? That sounds like, all right, maybe that sounds like the guy at your average New York pizza parlor. That doesn't sound like Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm has some grit. Ben Grimm has some, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? He's got that kind of Brooklynese grit about him that I don't see, or I don't hear from this Ben Grimm. So that was very disappointing to me as well. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic that this film could be pretty good, but it's basically a 50-50 proposition, because they've got to make me believe Pedro Pascal is Reed Richards. I don't feel that right now. I want to feel something compelling coming out of the Johnny Storm character. I've seen nothing. They've shown me nothing, so I really don't have anything to base it on. So, I mean, it's not bad or good right now. Sue is all right. Sue is the most acceptable one. She looks enough like Sue, and the little bit we see of her, she behaves enough like Sue that I can get behind her the most. Ben, again, the voice is really off, and it's really off-putting, and the visual is not really much better. I mean, I don't really think he looks enough like the Thing, that you don't have that spark, you don't have that fire in the eyes, and that's kind of off-putting to me as well. But I do like the costumes. I do like the look of Galactus. I like the overall aesthetic that they're going for with the sort of futuristic yet retro vibes that we're getting. So again, I forget what I if I have to give a I don't remember if I ever give trailers ratings, but if I have to give this trailer a rating, it would probably be, oh man, I want to say 2.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, maybe a 3 for effort. I mean, I kind of feel like they're trying, but again, you've I don't know, you haven't convinced me with Johnny. I really I really don't think this read is going to be successful in many people's minds from the jump. Um, Ben again is Ben Grimm to me. The Thing is like my Mount Rushmore of superheroes. He's got to be on the Mount Rushmore, and if you don't do him right, you're going to hear from me. And I don't really feel like he's completely there. I think the voice needs a lot of work. I think they could tweak the face still so that he doesn't look completely like his eyes are completely dark and beady. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I think, the rest of it'll all fall upon the performances. I'm sure they all probably will be able to do a good enough job. But again, that's where I am. And let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you feel about this? Is this promising? Or like me, do you think that there's still some problems here? There's still some obstacles, and hopefully they'll be able to overcome them. I don't really know because the problem being they have to get this movie out by July. Now, I imagine that all the effects work is probably done already. The major stuff, I mean, the Thing and the motion capture and all that is probably done. The rest of it is going to be probably a process of because it's already February. It's a process of getting some last minute effect shots in, scoring the film, editing. Maybe they're still uh, in the editing room. I don't really think there's too much going to change from this, but I do wish that they would tweak it a little more and see if they could get something off the ground that would be a little more in line with the Thing. And hopefully, Pedro Pascal changes my mind. I don't think he will. He just doesn't look like Reed, and he's taking me out of it. And again, I want to see some more, maybe from Johnny, before I really make a complete verdict on him. So let me know what you think. That is the Fantastic Four trailer, first steps, and I'm hoping it's going to be good. I'm definitely going to go see it, probably more than once. And well, what do you think? You know, what are you more excited for? Superman or Fantastic Four First Steps? Let me know in the comments below, and check out the Twitter page and the link in the description below. And I'll probably put a poll up, and you can tell me there which one you're looking more forward to this July. Will it be Fantastic Four First Steps or Superman? And so far, right now, for me, it's Superman. Again, I feel like, if I see a little more from this, maybe it'll change my mind. And while you're there, take a look at the link in the description below for the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye website. You can check out my comics right now. I've put the paywall down temporarily, and I forgot to put it back up. So I noticed that some people are actually reading it. So maybe I will leave the paywall down for another week or so, seeing as how I'm getting a few eyes on the book. So that's always a fun thing. So until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.